we've asked Steve Green to come here today to speak on a panel that we entitled Media with a Message. We're gonna get real in Lansing. It'll be crazy. Man, I love this guy. Oh man, Camp. I don't know. Let's see. So, Steve Green, Hybrid Life Magazine. Thank you very much for showing up here. There are a few people in the audience that aren't related yet to Mr. Green, this gentleman here. So, I'd like a round of applause, please, if we can introduce him. Steve Green, Hybrid Life Magazine.
Thank you. My name is Steve Green, and I'm the publisher of Hybrid Life Magazine. It's a magazine that covers everything green, including marijuana, and our natural rights and living, gardening, things like that. I also write for the City Pulse here in Lansing, a newspaper that's progressive, and they cover many issues. One of the things I do is I'm a columnist, so I critique marijuana, the stores, and some products in the state. So that sends me on a journey sometimes. I've been to about 400 stores in the state of Michigan, and I've went through processes, everything from being fingerprinted to patted up and down to get into some of these places. And I hope to see a little bit of regulation with them. I think the media has tremendous powers. I experienced both in my case. There was a criminal case where they said I grew marijuana, as well as I did in the Free Brie case, where the media turned the tides. After that is when me and my wife decided and made note that it was important to not only have the media on our side, but to at least control a portion of it. And so that was kind of what spurred us on with Hybrid Life. And it's important both objectively and as a responsibility for people in the news to bring forth truthful information. A lot of times when we talk about marijuana or medical marijuana, so many things have been skewed for so long that even the records themselves have to be questioned. So when things like that come up, unfortunately, in the media, we're faced with other things like deadlines and word counts, and I experience that burdensome problem all the time with I would love to tell you more and more and more about a store, or more and more and more about a product, and more and more about an incentive or a law or an initiative or anything, but we're limited by word count. And we're also judged subjectively how well we're doing based on how many likes there are, or how many people pick up that newspaper, or how many people write into your column. And so you have to keep that in mind, because the best information isn't necessarily the most entertaining information. So there's a balancing act that you have to do there if you want to be a real journalist and provide truthful information, as well as be someone that has an art or a character that can carry an audience. With that being said, I've seen cases all the way across the country, most recently in Kansas, where someone was found not guilty by a jury. They gave someone marijuana that later died. They tried to charge that person with murder. And so one of the big moving factors in that case was not only people, not only activists, but the media, because the media painted the truth of what was going on, and people were outraged by it, people were disgusted by it. People said, hey, I smoked marijuana and I didn't die, so I think you're lying. And that's what we need to see more and more. 10 years ago, you couldn't have paid a media place to play something positive about marijuana. It was just impossible. Their agenda was opposite of marijuana. And now, you know, I have media stations calling me every week. Do you have a positive story for us? Is there a child you can tell us about that's got epilepsy? Or is there this or that? Because now they're seeking the positive stories. Now they're seeking to make change. And so that's really good, because even at rallies and at protests, I've seen it, and a lot of people that have been doing this a while have seen it. They used to go out and they used to search for the person that looked the most ridiculous, that seemed like they would say the stupidest things, and then that's who they would air on the news and say, look, this is the marijuana people. And now you'll see them go right past people that look that role, and they'll go to other people and say, who's the organizer of the event? We want to talk to somebody that handles logistics or something like that, which is really different. And so seeing the media make that swing, as a patient, it makes me feel better knowing that it's happening and that our side is being represented now in the mainstream media. It's not just our media, it's not just our social medias and stuff like that. It's actually every National Geographic, Time Magazine, anything you can think of is now talked about marijuana. I used to make a joke, and it's barely true anymore, and that was that you could go into any bar or supermarket and say the word marijuana, and you'd get Snickers. People are gonna laugh. It's weed. But now, you say marijuana, and you get someone with gray hair that turns around and goes, what? That could help my grandson. Was that like the one on TV? You know, and that's what they say, TV, or I read that in the paper. And it's a problem that we're facing if you like this Legalize campaign that's coming up for 2016, whichever side you like. It's hard for the media to spell out exactly what each side is doing or what each side wants. All people, the general public, see is weed should be legalized. Marijuana crime is ridiculous. That's what they see. They don't see all the other things behind it. And so in this next year, it's going to be an overcoming battle for a lot of people in the media to be able to depict this election, both the presidential one with marijuana being a topic, which I think is one of the first times that it's in a positive light been a topic. I know in the past if you agreed to fight marijuana, you were more apt to be elected. But this is the first election where it looks like the majority would rather vote for a president that wants to see marijuana descheduled or taken down, legalized or decriminalized in some way. And that's a big positive movement for us.
You guys think that's true? Is that true? Would anyone in here vote that way, maybe? For a president who was pro-marijuana and open about it? I wasn't really. I mean, that's a beautiful show of hands. That's promise. It's definitely more than half this room. Surprise, surprise. I think you nailed it, Steve. Steve Green, Hybrid Life Magazine, huh? Steve represents, wow, man, like the Swiss Army knife of the marijuana movement, brother, actually, because quite honestly, this gentleman got into this honestly. Steve, could you talk a little bit about how you ended up using medical marijuana in the first place, sir? Please?
Yeah, I would have much rather never had to use marijuana, or would have rather just used it for fun. But in my case, I developed epilepsy, and at the time I had worked for years and years in the automotive industry, had a young family, was married, bought a home, had a couple of small children, and then one day carrying groceries in, all of a sudden I started having grand mal seizures. And from that point on, it just continued in a vicious cycle. The more times I would go to the doctor or the specialist, the more medications I would get put on, the more medications I would get put on, the more side effects I would go through, the more seizures I would have, and on and on and on that cycle went. Until one day I was faced with 3 options that my doctor came up with after being sent to all the different specialists and around the state. And the 3 options were a brain surgery where hopefully they wouldn't hit any parts of the brain that would damage my verbal abilities or my walking abilities, but they couldn't guarantee that. The second one was a vagus nerve stimulator, which is similar to a pacemaker attached to your brain. So when a seizure starts to happen, it shocks your brain and is supposed to pull you out of that seizure. And the third option was he'd heard some anecdotal evidence of this marijuana stuff. And so I just chuckled because, like everyone else back then, he said marijuana. And so I laughed. And he goes, it's really not that funny, you have to take this serious. And so I was like, okay, well, you know, I don't even need to think about it, I'll take the weed, you know, I'll take the marijuana card or whatever. And he goes, no, I want you to go home and think about it. And so that was all I needed to think about. But I still went home and I talked it over with my wife and my mom and, you know, family, and they all decided that, you know, even if I got really, really addicted to marijuana, that was a better option than being nonverbal or not being able to walk or having 100 seizures a month. So we took that plunge, and it ended up being the thing that stopped my seizures and is able to have me live a functioning life.
You know, it's pretty surprising, this gentleman here that I'm sitting up next to. I opened up a copy of City Pulse magazine, and much to my surprise, I found the Green Report. Did anybody see that? All right, the Green Report, you saw that? Yeah, that's right. That's right. Steve, could you talk a little bit about how that happened, man? It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, when I first got into this, I never wanted to be known or pointed to or anything like that. And after everything I went through, they pushed me into the media in order to win my case. Once I was there, I figured now that I was in an uncomfortable place I never wanted to be in, I might as well stay there. And so I had talked, City Pulse had done several articles on our case and such, and they had contacted me and said, we used to do a review section, but we don't have anyone writing that anymore, and we don't want to do a ghostwriter, we want to do a real person. Would you be interested in that? And so I took that, the mission on, and have been able to experience a lot of quality marijuana and provisioning centers, dispensaries, as well as experience some places that make me question their motives. And so it's been an interesting experience, and I think it's been a positive one, because one of the things I mentioned earlier was feedback. And the City Pulse gets more feedback from that review section than they do any other. And so it's really great to see that they have people writing in, asking them where they can get products, or can they review another store, or things like that. So again, it's reinforcement to the media that this is a topic that people want to hear about.
That's a pretty cool story, I guess. Yeah, I was impressed. I was like, whoa. We read the Facebook. Hey, dude, that's pretty cool. Steve Green. So Lansing, Michigan, huh? You didn't go anywhere. You said I'm going to do a magazine, and you stayed right here, huh? Why is that?
Well, I think just like the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, it starts with the name of the state. And I think that we should remember that, because for years we heard of the Occupy movement, and we heard of people saying Main Street over Wall Street. And now that marijuana is not so terrible, it's become to the point where that is the battle now. Is it going to be Main Street, or is it going to be Wall Street? Are we going to be allowed to have stores? Are we going to be allowed to be in the market? And those are questions that we're going to see, but that's what led me to want to keep it local. Our issues are local, our family is local, our community is local. And so we wanted to keep everything local. We do our printing in the Lansing area. We do our publishing and editing in the Lansing area. And we try to incorporate mostly all Michigan-based stories into it, because this is our home, this is where we're going to be and where we're going to stay. Our roots are here. And so it was nice to be able to just lean on that foundation and keep it local.
Thank you very much for answering, man. I appreciate that. Thanks for doing this panel again. Here we are, Lansing, downtown under Riverwalk, huh? Who would have thought? Here we are at the Lansing Center having an open dialogue about marijuana and politics and change. We got music playing outside, vendors in the other room, Steve Green here. I mean, this is beautiful, Jay. People from all over. I look around the room, I see a lot of people I've seen before, and I appreciate that. There's a lot of support in this community. Steve, I'd like for you to share a positive support story, if you could. In your travels, you know, you've been to dispensaries aplenty, good and bad, you know, we've been following you, I know I have. But you don't have to give names or anything like that. But would you mind sharing a positive, compassionate story about the community that you've experienced, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's so many to choose from there. One of the ones that I'm going to select to talk about is a dispensary, and I'm not going to name names. The reason I'm not going to name names and the reason they're not public about what they do is because people will take advantage, unfortunately, of any system. And so this particular dispensary, they don't advertise or talk about it, but if somebody comes in that has a need for CBD medicine or some kind of an edible or something like that, they provide that absolutely free of charge. And if somebody's a veteran, they provide them monthly medicine at under $200 for whatever they need. And so those are two services that they don't have to offer, and they're not doing it as a marketing purpose because they won't even say who they are. But it just goes to show that there are people that are in this for the right reasons, and there are people that are compassionate. We don't often hear those stories, which is why I chose to highlight this one. And I only learned of it because a patient, we have a secret shopper program, and I sent a patient out on a secret shopper mission. This particular patient uses a wheelchair, and they went to the store and they said they'd never been treated that well. They'd never been cared about that much. And so they came back, and their experience, it was so powerful to them that they cried when they told me about it. And so to know that a store that's supposed to be profitable cares that much goes to show me that Wall Street can't compete with Main Street, and it is really our local people in our local community.
Absolutely, I actually agree with you, man. I like farmers markets and things like that. I really support that. It gives the people a chance to come to the table. I think it's beautiful.